Or a vodka martini straight up.
What else?
Well, I like a lot of things, but...
You're gonna like that. Drink it. It's the best.
It's nice. It's dry. What is this?
And you haven't even tasted it. Taste it. Dome Perignon.
Welcome back to the Harbor. I'm your host, the Keynote Cowboy, and I'm with Scott. And today is Election Day 2024. But we're not here to talk about politics. We're here to talk about the killing of a Chinese bookie from 1976. And I'll be the first one to say, it's embarrassing to say, but this is my first John Cassavetes film.
Me too. Me
It is
too.
what it is. We'll just get that out of the way. It is funny because by the time this episode's uploaded, we'll probably have an idea of who's elected, but that doesn't matter. You can still watch Kino no matter who the president is. But,
I think we'll all be needing an escape. I'm just ready for everything to be over. Whether that's the election or democracy in the United States. I'm just ready for it to be over.
Well, anyway. The killing of a Chinese bookie is about this club owner in the 70s. I assume it's set when it was made. And he gets into a little bit of a trouble. And it's kind of a character study. A lot. Well, it really is mostly a character.
Oh, it's entirely character driven.
Mixed with some classic sleazy 70s crime action.
Yeah, and some film noir. And there's some noir. There's some dark.
Yeah, for sure.
There's some dark, visually dark parts of this movie, for sure. I mean, half the movies in seedy nightclubs and stuff.
Yeah. And I figured we are talking about the theatrical cut mostly. We'll talk about comparing them. But this is one that I feel like I can see the arguments of cutting it down 25, 30 minutes. But when you compare the two, really, the main thing is like you lose a lot of the weirdness of the structure that kind of makes the movie what it is. It kind of makes it original. Kind of the main aspect of what I wanted to talk about is it is kind of this weird kind of structure of this movie and the style in general. It's just it's a little bit different.
It's a slow burn. It's a very slow burn. And like I said, it's very character driven, and it's about moments and it's about scenes. Because Cassavetes started as an actor, for those of you watching who may not have known. And he went in directing because I've heard some say that he didn't feel fully creatively fulfilled as an actor. Which, when you put it that way, you start to see some of Cassavetes in Ben Gazzara's character Cosmo Vittelli, the nightclub owner, our hero. Or even Mr. Sophisticated. Is that his name? I keep wanting to call him Mr. Wonderful, but that's the guy from Shark Tank. So this is Mr. Sophistication. Excuse me. Because there is like this exploitation aspect to it and a sexploitation aspect to it.
Yeah.
And I do wonder how much of that he put in there just because he knew that would sell, but also I feel that, kind of like Cosmo, he knows it sells, but he's also looking for something deeper amidst all this sex and sleaze.
Famously, what I knew Cassavetes the most for is the way he famously told Scorsese he thought his movie Boxcar Bertha was kind of shitty. Like kind of urged him to do better. And so Scorsese's like, okay, fine. And then he made Mean Streets the year later and became like a household name, at least for cinephiles. So
yeah, hey man, sometimes you need that.
Yeah,
people will kiss your butt if you're the boss, and sometimes you need another artist to just be like, hey man, that
but it's just like he's one of those like guys who are like, it was in that circle of filmmakers coming up and like making cool shit in the 70s. It's just another one of those we've done a lot of films on here now that are 70s set that can get kind of grimy or kind of, you know.
Right. And typically I feel when I think grimy 70s American filmmaking, I typically think New York. I think Taxi Driver, I think Midnight Cowboy, that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Heavy
Um,
Traffic. Check that out. Episode out if you haven't.
oh yeah, Heavy Traffic's another one, animated X-rated film.
Yeah.
Um, and I but this is set in LA. And it's interesting. It's
What?
definitely
Is
I
it
hate
set in
LA.
LA? I thought, damn. I thought it was in Vegas.
Well, they say Vegas, but then I'm looking at the synopsis and it's in Los Angeles on the
Okay.
Sunset Strip. So I'm pretty
That was a
sure
little
it's in LA
confusing.
because he says this side of Vegas,
Okay.
I'm not sure though. And I could be wrong. Maybe
No, okay. I was
yeah.
confused because like
There's a lot of gambling.
they go over to well, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But because they were going over to Santa Monica to a club, and I was like, damn, that's a 6 hour drive from Vegas because I've made that drive myself.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's a hell of a
Well,
time.
I thought that at first too, and then as I watched the movie, I'm like, no, this is L.A. Because I have not been to L.A. in the '70s because I was not born.
Because at first I was like, just from the atmosphere at first, I assumed it was going to be like another New York movie, which is interesting because it does start one of the earlier scenes is him talking to another real New Yorker talking about their time growing up and what made them authentic New Yorkers. So it kind of sets that tone of like this is almost like a New York 70s movie, but no, it's set in LA and it's just kind of off. It's kind of phony.
Right. And he's a transplant, and I think he comes with a different set of ideals. I'm going to paint in very broad strokes here, but maybe a more pragmatic sort of set of ideals or upbringing versus the city of dreams. And he's trying to do showbiz, but he's doing it in the sleaziest way, but also still takes it very seriously.
Yeah. And I like when a movie has a character that's kind of lost in their own sort of thing in their own element and it does like a great job of creating this sort of hazy atmosphere to match how kind of they're lost in the middle of it, and this is like very apparent early on, like literally and figuratively, just the way of like setting up how he handles business in the first scene and then when he's just sitting around in the bar and it's so like 70s grit, like you can't see much in there. He's just kind of pretty much on his own except for the cab driver who wanted to come in and talk to him. And also another aspect is the style. I realized early on with just how many tracking shots there are that this is my kind of cinematography, and I always really love when movies do as much as they can to make you feel like you're sitting in the room with the characters. And I noticed very early on it's effective. Like when he walks up to talk to the girls for the first time in the dressing room, it just follows him up there. It really feels like you're sitting in that room chit-chatting with them. Like it reminds me of documentaries I've seen or have made because I have it just felt like when you're in the middle of trouble and you're like sitting there like overhearing different stuff. It's great in that way. And
Yeah.
huh?
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it also in that moment sets up his character to show he's kind of I mean, he is a loser, but like he's trying to just tell a story that he finds interesting. It's not even a good story. And he has to like say, like, come on, let me talk. And then he finally gets the girl's attention and then he starts to tell the story and then they end up starting talking over him anyway. So that really paints the picture of who he is because, most club owners in any other movie would be very like a very commanding force, possibly a boss of some kind, they would you walk into the club, everyone's at attention, like, oh shit, it's the boss. He walks in and like the bartender half-ass like puts on his vest and shit. And then there's like no one there, it's like, oh man, this is a guy past his prime and the club is past his prime too.
But Cosmo, he still has a charm about him.
Yeah.
He's still a charming guy, and you
He
want to
can
root
pull
for
shit
him.
off if he needs to.
Right.
To
No,
to a point.
yeah, to a point. He messes it up badly. Because, the beginning scene took me a little bit to realize what was happening. He's paying off a gambling debt. So clearly he has vices. And I think part of the problem is like he wants to be everybody's friend because he's a fundamentally lonely person. And in a weird way, if you're a boss that tries to be everybody's friend, well, then they're not seeing you as a boss.
Yeah.
So that's why he really has to almost, instead of telling people what to do, he has to almost plead with them. So, as a director of a stage production, to put it generously, he's kind of spineless, even though he has to act like a big shot, which you kind of do when you're a small business owner. And this is definitely a small business. This is definitely struggling. And I can see why. I'm watching this movie and I'm thinking, who would want to go to this club? Because on the one hand, if you want to go to a titty bar, go to a titty bar without all of this flash and distraction. And on the other hand, if you want to go to the theater, go to the theater. So who is this for? And it's for him because he just wants something of his own. And you get the feeling like, I mean, this is clearly all he has is this club. He keeps returning to the club throughout the movie.
That's his big sense of control.
Yeah. Which is what everybody wants. Everybody in their life just wants a sense of control, whether you're The Rock or you're running for president or you're, somebody working a whatever blue collar job, if you're, the boss of, I got a friend who's working in a janitorial company and he's talking about how one of his supervisors is kind of micromanaging. It's just like, because that's
that line of work.
That line of
what
work.
Are you doing?
And it's because that's what he has. Like that's what it is, And the guy doesn't have a family. A lot of people get their sense of stability and control from that. And like this is his family, but it's still a revolving door of girls, And he even tries to with his girlfriend. I don't even know how much of a real girlfriend she is.
Yeah.
With his girlfriend Rach. He calls her mom, like he's trying to make it his family.
Yeah, because he doesn't have a family. He's old.
Yeah.
He's older.
Yeah, he's probably how old was Ben Gazzara in this? I mean, he might be like a 1976, 40s.
Yeah, I don't know. Everyone looks like old in the 70s.
Yeah, no, he was like 46. Okay, so he actually doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, but in the 70s, you're 46, you don't have a wife and kids. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Well, and we don't know a lot about his past. There's one scene where he talks about his parents briefly, and that's the most we see of him. Because, I mean, this man, he doesn't know who he is, and this is who he is. He's that person who gets their identity completely from their work, who might stay at work late because that's the only place they feel like they have control and not at their home, their wife yelling at them and stuff.
But that is the through line through this movie. Is that he does care about this work and he does like the style of performances he does with his club, and he does care about the girls and like the people on stage and stuff like that. It's just the aspect of it is many times when they're doing their performances, people are saying, "Oh, just blow out your tits, get on with it, just bring out the girls and stuff." And it's at this awkward place though, I feel like, because it's been stagnating so long that like it's lost a lot of its charm. They're in the mid 70s now. Maybe perhaps this act was much more popular 10 years ago and he didn't want to evolve, or he didn't want to lose that aspect of it. But maybe if it was a gay club, it would be, like a drag club, it'd do way better. But it's kind of hanging on to that dream, that kind of art that you feel that you wanted to make, and people just want tits. And that's kind of a sadness in there a little bit.
Oh yeah. So much sad.
But you get way less of that in the director's cut. I think the director's cut, it has nice pacing, but like you get a lot of that heart and connection of that place to his character that is not as present in the
Which you
director's cut.
you have to the despite the name, the killing of the Chinese bookie is, I'm not going to say it's the least interesting part of this movie, but it's not the point.
Yeah.
The Chinese bookie himself has, does he have 2 lines?
No.
And are they even translated? I don't think he says a word in English, because he's just this other,
Yeah.
that he is pretty much forced to attack. And it seems uncharacteristic, even because, again, he doesn't know who he is, and he gets lost in this world, and he feels like he has to do it. And I just looked it up because I knew we were going through, there was an economic recession in the 70s, and we were in 76. Let's assume this was this released February 15, 1976, so probably filmed in 75. We're just coming out of a recession. People are still feeling a recession at this time.
Just got done with Vietnam and all that shit.
Yeah. So we're feeling that. And that's in this, I mean, you have and just the naivete and the desperation that's in LA. There's this desperation from everyone. Where at one point you have a young, probably 18-year-old or supposed to be 18-year-old waitress at a cafe asking, when are you going to let me audition? Because she sees that as a better life than what she has, which makes you wonder what the rest of her life is. Or maybe she just isn't a good waitress, isn't making any tips. I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
Well, they got her on the early lunch shift, so
Oh yeah, that's true. Early lunch,
especially in that area, everyone's out late. No one's getting up early for coffee.
Yeah, on Sunset.
It's not fucking Paris.
No, it's like whenever I go to diners to write for myself all the time, and I'll go in there and get a coffee. But I'm always thinking, how much are these waiters aren't making anything? These waitresses aren't making anything. I feel bad for them. At least they don't have to be out at 3 a.m. But geez,
a lot of this movie, the vibes are just off a bit because that's just how things are in the club, and also it's represented in the movie. And the way the pacing lingers kind of adds to it in a lot of ways. At first, I was kind of thrown off by the pacing.
Me too.
The further I got in, the further I realized it was adding this sense of realism I didn't account for. And it added to a lot of the scenes. And
it's a decidedly uncinematic movie in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Even though there's some brilliant sequences that are still partially cinematic. I'm thinking of the parking garage, that whole sequence, where the shadows do a lot of work, and there's he uses what is it called, gel lens, or he puts gel over the, he does that for a lot of the lighting. You're in this, almost can't make out the shapes and figures in this underworld, in this nightclub underworld he's in, which I've never been to a strip club because I don't need to pay a bunch of money for women to pretend to like me. But I know people do. I got one friend in particular. Geez. But I've definitely been around nightlife people, and I mean, there's an emptiness to it when you're coordinating pub crawls and you're in your 40s, and whenever you and whenever you're on them too. You're not just managing the business. And you're in your 40s and you look more than your age, but you can't tell it in the dim lights, but once they step into a street light or something, you realize this person looks a lot more haggard than you thought, male or female. There's a darkness to it, and it's a nihilism, and it's people living in their base instincts. And with his art, he's trying to claw out of that, but he can't, because he doesn't know who he is. And so he just, because he doesn't know who he is, he's sucked into his base instincts, gambling especially. Thank God. Every day I thank God I don't have the gambling gene. I don't like gambling. Not for me, not my vice. I got plenty of others.
Yeah, I guess I'll just go ahead and say this episode's brought to you by my film Christmas in Vegas. There's a lot of scenes in this video where people are just sitting and watching this guy gamble his money away. And I've been in the exact same scenario, except it was real. And if you want to check it out, it's on our other YouTube channel, The Mooring Line. I'll put a link in the description below, but it's a real documentary. It may not be on the morning line forever. I'm getting it retooled for a possible put on, you know, some sort of video on demand on some website. I've found a distributor that accepts really low budget, no budget films. So hopefully,
And that's what we do here.
I'm just saying, in the next few months, I would like to possibly have it distributed somewhere. I'm not sure where that will be, but I've been working hard this month on really refining some of the audio and stuff.
And I know that guy screwed up your trip, but imagine that guy signs your paycheck and he gambles $23,000.
That's the thing. Is like,
and we are getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but I mean, and just the line that made me scratch my head, or it made me do this, made me rub my temples and think, Jesus Christ, this guy. He said, "Oh, what's his name? Said I could have unlimited credit." And even the waiter's like, unlimited credit? This is a casino. What are you talking about? That's insane. We're not just going to.
It's such a major part of his character, because it's like, as a club owner, he should know what it's like to talk big and to schmooze in the moment with other people and just to say shit to the customer like, oh, we'll take care of you, you know, no big deal. And the fact that he takes this at face value just shows exactly who this guy is. Like, what a moron.
Well, and he does get some credit. He gets like $50 credit or something at the beginning. Yeah,
but like,
and when I, you know, let's say just me as a rational person, if a club owner's like, hey, I'll take care of you, I imagine you're going to get like one round of drinks.
Or get a couple drinks for my ladies, you know, show them a good time. Maybe, you know, here's a little bit of spending credit, you know, pat you on the back. No big deal.
I mean, I think his life is so dismal. He has, at least he puts on this face of optimism that he has to have to claw his way out of like his own thoughts in his own life, which I've met people like that. I mean, some of them are just that kind of person. Like their life they can be, you know, in the Coliseum being eaten by lions and they'll still find a way to spin it positively because that's their biology, and God bless them. But then I think there's other people who like, they have to latch onto things or else they'll lose their mind.
Yeah. This is the definition of a guy who talks the talk, but he can't walk the walk. And before they even goes to the casino, like they had one okay night, and he's like, let's go celebrate. And he gets all the girls. And when he goes to pick up Sherry, everyone in the house is like, who is this guy? Why is he here? And it's all just slightly off vibes, uncomfortable on purpose. And like, this guy thinks he's living the life, but
he has a driver, but he's not even in a real limo.
Yeah.
He's getting Dom Perignon, which I'm not in a Dom Perignon champagne budget. I like champagne, but I don't know the expensive stuff from the cheap stuff with wine. I don't know. I've had $30 bottles of wine. I've had $5 bottles of wine. They're about the same to me. But I even feel like Dom Perignon is just such a recognizable brand. To me, that detail, now that I think about it, is showing that he doesn't really know champagne because he's not really in high society. Yeah. He just knows the biggest brand name.
Yes.
Because people don't realize, like something like Gucci or, you know, all your brands, like those are for like upper middle class people to rich people. But then like really rich people, they get their clothes tailor-made. They're going, what is it, Seville Row or whatever in Italy. And like they know designers by name, you know.
Yeah.
It's not this like mass produce fake value handbag where garishly, I really obviously don't like these things. Garishly, you know, you'll put Louis Vuitton on it to let people know that you had Louis Vuitton. And that's the difference between like new money and old money. You know, new money's a lot flashier. And then old money, there's still like this old high society, like false humility that goes into it because it's too gauche to show out your money that way. And so I mean, but this guy's not even new money. He's broke and he's in debt.
And I'm sure you looked it up. 23,000 adjusted for inflation is 120,000.
Yeah.
How you get in that deep in one night's crazy.
And he's clearly an experienced gambler. But again, it's that delusion. Like gamblers, they have that delusion, and you have to ignore math.
But also, he's in this headspace of like denial. Honestly, it reminds me of my old man of like, you're in charge. You know, pretty much you know what you're doing. but like the business has just not been there, but you want to pretend in front of everybody like it's okay, to the point that you're willing to go all in even though it's going to wreck your fucking life. And it's just a lot of I'm not going to say Cosmo's a pathological liar like my father, but it does remind me of a lot of those kinds of traits where you just keep getting deeper and deeper just because you cannot stand to tell people like, hey, here's what's going on. You know, we're gonna have to do some budget cuts. We might have to figure some stuff out. Let's try some new advertising. No, I want to be a big shot, and everything's fine.
Yeah, their ego can't take it.
Yeah.
And definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results.
And it's almost like he can almost grasp that he's in trouble, and he's almost willing to admit this because he's down on his luck having coffee after all the girls left after being in the hole. And the girl that comes up and knows him, so obviously he has some sort of notoriety, at least used to. And she wants to audition because she's, tired of being a waitress. And at first he is like, no, you don't want to do this, blah, blah, blah. Because he knows, like, why would I hire someone if I just got into all this debt when we're supposed to be trying to figure this out? But he still just cannot handle it. He cannot just like say no. And he loves the idea, the lifestyle and everything. And he just gives in. And then it cuts to her going with him to the club in the morning, like to do an audition. It's like, dude, you have so many more priorities to figure out right now.
And you could maybe like do some twisted logic of like, oh, she'll bring in new customers or something.
Yeah.
And that's what he tells himself. But
that's what he rationalizes clearly because his girlfriend shows up / worker, and she's obviously
don't shit where you eat, guys, especially if you're a goddamn titty bar owner. But continue.
Yeah, and it's like it's not just that she's jealous of this girl, it's also like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we just saw what happened and you're already trying to, like, are you about to oust somebody or what? It's just so
right. And that's even greater. I'm sure there's some jealousy involved, but that's even greater because, like, again, how jealous can you get when the guy's a strip club owner and he's slapping women on the ass as they go downstairs and all that, pre-Weinstein stuff. Pretty sure in the 70s that was still frowned upon, but not that it didn't happen.
Yeah, they seemed all pretty cool with each other.
I mean, yeah, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. There's like I said, a lot of the club stuff is trimmed down, and the major sequence after this where they just show the performance, like a major chunk of the performance, like 10 minutes. This part does feel like it goes on for a while. And like, that's when the pacing really started to fuck with me. And I was like, I guess this is on purpose, but the show that they're doing on stage sucks. So it makes it more awkward and it amplifies it. And then I started to be like, well, maybe it really is on purpose to amplify like how kind of half-assed everyone's doing their performances.
And because the choreography is practically non-existent. They're traipsing around on stage. They're not really dancing.
Yeah.
That one girl he auditions is actually a ballet dancer. But then he's like, what do you call that jump? She's like, a pirouette, because he doesn't know anything about theater.
Yeah.
Obviously. And it's all about Paris. That's another thing. It's this weird faux sophistication, It'd be like having that little Eiffel Tower in Vegas. It's this... I've been reading Baudrillard. It's a simulacrum of high society. It's not actually. That's the densest goddamn book I've ever read in my life. But I'm a fan of the Matrix, and it's in there. Go on.
It seems from that sequence though that like he wants to have the sauce, but he doesn't seem to have ever put in the effort to really try and do the sort of go full artsy, like full theater if you're gonna do it.
Yeah, do a full burlesque, not just
do a
full
thing.
Moulin Rouge.
You don't have to have a full stage to be successful. If you've ever seen the Birdcage, look how much they do with drag and stuff. And I love those sequences in the Birdcage. It's so fun, like creative, and like
it's good.
Get into it. And obviously, he's not doing a gay bar, but like I said, it would be probably way more successful if it was a gay bar.
Yeah,
ditch the women, do all drag. You'd be fucking making money, but he just doesn't have the sauce, I don't think. Like, but it's just there's nuance because you do know that he does care about the art aspect of it because he gets very meticulous, and a lot of the time,
But
excuse me, a lot of the time it's during the moments you should not be thinking or caring about the club. And it's like frustrating. Like, dude, this is not
one
the time or place.
one of the most best scenes or funniest scenes and most telling scenes is
Yeah,
he's in the middle of this hit job and he's at a payphone
yeah.
asking, well, what songs are they singing right now? What are they doing? He's trying to direct over the phone.
Like, why are only two people on stage right now? Like, dude, are you? That's so good. That's such
It's
a
because he feels like things are slipping away from him and he needed a sense of control in that moment.
yeah.
That's all it is. And also, here's the thing: is he an artist? I mean, technically, if you take a broad enough definition, he has nothing to say because he doesn't know who he is. And
Yeah.
if you don't know who you are, you don't know your relation to the world. And if you don't know your relation to the world, like what can you say about
That's why your art sucks.
Yeah, well, and that's why you can only mimic other art. You can mimic, the class of European cities, but you have no understanding of it. He's probably
He's one of those guys who went to some cool clubs back in the day and then tried to copy them or ape them and do exactly what they're doing, but it's missing a substance to it.
Yeah. And how
But it was enough to have some sort of flash in the pan kind of success years ago, and now it's like barely hanging on. So, but I like that aspect. At first it was about to lose me, but then it really, which is not fully, but I'm just saying some of that pacing with that full show sequence, and then it really just hit of how much it added. When you see it taken away in the director's cut, you realize how much actually it adds to the film and its weird loose style, which really
absolutely you need to see the crappiness of the production.
The loose style is the parallel to the character in which we're studying, and when you cut that down, it cuts down on the character. And
because this is so subversive to film noir. If you cut it down, you kind of just get a standard film noir.
Yeah,
but worse, maybe.
It's still solid, but it's just like it doesn't have the extra stuff that makes it stand out, in my opinion. And like,
right? No, we need to see him trying to keep the party going. And this is what I have quite a few sober friends because I'm a comedian. And they talk about like one of the advantages of Coke. It's this mentality of like, don't let the party end, keep it going all night because I don't want to be alone with my own thoughts. That's what it is. And so after Rach comes in there and starts
just
like
sober,
getting into and gets into that cat fight and just like an idea like a Burt Kreischer need to like keep the party going.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, this movie's better than The Machine. I'll say that. But I mean, and that's why like he's trying to pour scotch into Rachel's mouth. He's like, come on, let's just keep the party going. Let's just forget about that. That's just his level of delusion. And you need to see all that. How would you feel like another thing of delusion is imagine owning a strip club and then putting a gross guy like Mr. Sophistication up on the stage and expecting people to react to that well. Although some of the crowd seems to.
There is a niche there that I can see working if they did it with the right execution and the right kind of performance. But it's just off enough to where it's kind of awkward and weird.
Right. And because he's not, I mean, he can't really sing. Nobody can really sing in this movie. That's another thing. He has this like song and dance thing, but nobody can really sing. Also Meade Roberts, who played Mr. Sophistication, he was also a screenwriter, which I didn't know. He worked on some Tennessee Williams adaptations and stuff. He's not just he's really not an actor by trade, but I think that adds to it in him being like uncomfortable on stage, wearing really terrible stage makeup that he sweats off immediately.
Yeah, he's like 2 steps away from Neil Hamburger.
Oh no. He really is though.
Yeah.
He's like Mr. Randy and then with the cheeseburgers and then Neil Hamburger put together. A lot of hamburgers in this movie. 12 to be exact.
12 to be exact. But
that's a plot point borrowed from Next Friday where they have to Ice Cube has to distract the dog with a pack of bologna. So
okay, yeah.
I'm just saying John Cassavetes was stealing from Mike Epps.
Yeah, if anything, he stole it from fucking Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry.
It's pretty good.
But we get after this sequence, we get the mob finally shows back up, and they're like, well, it didn't take them long, actually. They're like, we know this guy's not going to pay out. We might as well give him a visit. So they take him to a place and sit down, and they just pretty upfront about, hey, there's this Chinese bookie, and then you do the kind of Leo DiCaprio point meme at the TV when they drop the title of
Yeah.
the movie.
I mean, they pretty much just get out the script and are just like, hey, see the title of this movie? This is what
Yeah,
you got to do.
you gotta do it, dog.
This is what you got to do,
And he's
Cosmo.
like, oh shit.
And
No, I
even
don't.
then, he's trying to be have this higher moral compass. Is like, I don't want to completely erase the debt, which is also, it's him trying to say, like, I'll pay it off bit by bit, or I'll still give you some money.
Yeah.
And that's just him trying to delay his own payment and then also like trying to have the moral high ground. And in a weird way, even though he kills the Chinese bookie, he almost, out of the men in this movie, he almost is the most morally upstanding in a weird way. Because he at least tries to stand for something, even if he can't, because he's a fundamentally empty person, But he also can't stand up for himself. And also he kills the Chinese bookie, which is not good. Although the guy was like a triad boss, so
Yeah.
it's not a good
Well,
guy.
but also he's just like he's trying to constantly escape. Because after this, we get a sequence where he takes the girls out for the day, and then they go to the movies and stuff like that. And there's a moment where they're just kind of lingering, like they're sitting in a restaurant and they're kind of just chilling. And it's like I'd be spending my days trying to figure out ways to help the business or make money or, do other things, but he's just constantly trying to escape. And then they're in the movies even too long and they're late for their own show. That's how far like he's willing to forget about stuff. It's crazy. And because they get back to the club late, like that's your bread and butter. You should be ready to go. I get wanting to go to the movies,
I mean,
but
yeah, no, he was seduced by the Kino. I get it.
yeah. That's also like crazy to think about before. Well, you can have like a watch on your arm, but like,
Yeah, you could definitely. And this guy does have a watch.
yeah,
I think he is, big gold watch or whatever. Which is that's always like a fake rich guy thing. You see people with chains and I mean, just anybody with like, I'm like, dude, you spent your money on that,
yeah,
It's again, it's that conspicuous consumption thing where like real rich people, they're like, I mean, I wear a nice watch, but also the real nice ones are at home, safe in my collection. And what's really nice is the Warhol I have at my home. You can come over and see that.
yeah. But it's
Even
like,
at one point, there's a, I think, and it's when he's going around picking them up and giving orchids to everybody. He says a line. He says, "Style, not class." He even says that, which gives away his philosophy.
yeah,
You want the illusion of class to appeal to people who have none, but you really just want style.
yeah.
Confusion.
It's even like they get to the show late and it's so awkward. Like the lady on stage, even at this point, she says, wow, the show's so bad I should fully just take off my clothes, huh? It's like, well, like
Yeah.
whatever you gotta do. So clearly he's not gonna make an effort enough to change up the show and bring in new customers. Because like right after this, the mobsters come back, and now when it's like, what do you think's gonna happen? He's gonna get his shit rocked, obviously.
Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't happen earlier.
Yeah,
I'm kind of surprised it didn't happen the first night.
yeah, but like it was when they pull him into the car and they're like, okay, here's what you're gonna do. Here's a gun, here's a map. And then they give him this insane like detail of like, you're gonna go to this part of the map and go here at this time and then over here. And I'm so stupid. I'm like, there's no way without at least like MapQuest, let alone Google Maps, could I do this? Like, I need you
I
to
mean, if
draw
you
this
lived
out
in
for me.
LA and you had a paper map, you could figure it
I
out.
know it's just like so stressful. But when I thought the pacing or style was going to maybe lose me a bit, it rebounded during this sequence when they're in the car and they're just talking to him about this stuff, and the dialogue is so casual that it almost in like this non-cinematic way that it almost like reverses and becomes hyper real to me. in a way like almost like it's a secret camera setup or something. It was just so casual that it felt like they just recorded some guys off.
Right. It's very cinema verite. Is that the word for it?
Possibly.
Possibly one of the
But
worst. We don't like
it was so non-cinematic dialogue that it became cinematic. It was a really interesting sequence for me.
Yeah, and that's all of it, because like if you portray things realistically enough, is like, I mean, it's really hard to portray things realistically via artifice, and that's why you have to lean into the artifice. But if you're a talented enough filmmaker and actor, which also I think it helps that he was an actor because he was actor first. That's how he was able to get like these performances out, you know, and to write his dialogue for actors. I'm sure that has something to do with it. But also at the same time, that entire scene where you can barely see the outlines of anyone's faces, Cosmo, you can see him just playing it in his head, trying to get out of it. And at the same time, I even think with Cosmo, like, you never thought of skipping town, of just saying, screw this, I'm out of here. I'm going to Vegas. I'm going to another town. But I
think it escalated faster than he expected.
Yeah, and now it escalated faster than he expected.
I think he's had years and years of coasting to the point of like, oh, I'm going to get out of this financial trouble. I'm just going to, you know, do the bare minimum for years and years. And now it's suddenly not a viable option.
Right. And he can't think how to get out of it because fundamentally he's not a great
so
guy.
hard that it's like, no, here's your gun, bitch. And you think for a moment, like, he's going to figure out a way to get out of this. But then when he tears up the gambling receipt, you're like, oh, shit, now it's on.
Now it's on.
Okay.
You know, no computers. You know, I actually, just as a real quick aside, I saw an interview with Ben Gazzara, who plays Cosmo Vittelli. What a great name, Cosmo Vittelli. And he was talking about, it was around the time they were filming the killing of the Chinese bookie part. And Cassavetes, they all went to like dinner or something because they were shooting at night. Cassavetes was like, do you think we should kill the Chinaman? And he was like, it's called Killing of a Chinese Bookie. What are you talking about? It's like the guy wanted to either subvert it or just avoid violence entirely. Because like he was almost too emotionally invested. I was like, oh no, maybe there's a way I could redeem Cosmo. And I could see that, because if Cosmo and Mr. Sophistication, all these people are representations of Cassavetes in one way or another, I could see somebody getting into that character, you know. And I you know, which happens with directors. I saw some interview with Coppola recently on all the press he's been doing after around Megalopolis. Go check our discussion of that weird ass movie. But you know, he talks about like how he'll become the character in ways like unknowingly, you know, when he has to inhabit them for that long. Very highfalutin, very Coppola-like, but very interesting as well.
Also, with this particular character, to me, there's only one kind of direction. Like he by fluke successfully pulled off this assassination, but like he's not gonna get out of doing.
No, he's John Wick, and that's where the last act of the movie is they didn't expect him to live through it or even succeed.
Well, yeah, it's like how much of it was set up from the beginning, because right after they have him go off to do this, his car gets a flat tire. He almost crashes in the middle of the road after the guy says no traffic violations. I'm sure that was just like a joke, but like,
yeah, I think that was a joke and just a coincidence, because they just hotwired some crappy old car they could find.
No, I know it's probably just a joke, but like, it's a bad omen, nevertheless.
It is a bad omen.
Yeah. Like, I'd already be skipping town.
No, and Cosmo has cosmically bad luck.
Yeah, because
like, if it was a video game, if it was Fallout, his luck stat would be like 2.
Yeah, because imagine you're on this mission and now you're having to call a cab.
No, and then he's a charisma build, and not even a good one. And he has no points in agility or guns. I'm leaning real hard in this metaphor, I know, but
yeah. So like we
just
said,
fluke his way through it.
Not only is he calling the cab, but now he's calling the club, even though he's in huge trouble. And it's like, dude, forget about that shit. And then we
already talked about that, but yeah, that's him trying to get control. And this movie really does show me, like, I've thought about this before. Killing someone isn't hard. Getting away with it's hard. Like, if you really want to kill someone, like, you can do it.
I can do it right now to myself.
I can do it right now to myself.
You'd have to
On this
upload this
episode.
cast, but that'd be crazy. I'd probably still put it up on our Patreon.
Oh yeah, dude. If you want to the unfiltered, by the way, we have a new Patreon. It's free.
I only created it because I was so frustrated that one of our videos was being subdued by Amazon, but then I won the appeal, and that's our my Saltburn video. So if you want to go check that out, support it.
It's good stuff.
That's the only
I really
reason I
enjoyed it.
made a free Patreon, is just so I could put that up and be like, hey, you want to
Yeah,
watch
and in case one of ourselves kills ourselves on cast,
yeah, that way I can post it, You can
we're like,
pay.
this movie was terrible.
I would make people pay like $20 to watch it.
To watch Scott kill himself. I get into gambling debts. I'm like, this is the only way I can get out. This is by having a Patreon.
This is the only way.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. This is before he could crowdfund for his titty bar.
Yeah.
He couldn't make a Kickstarter.
Yeah. Anyway, I have a sinus infection. That's why I sound like shit. But he gets the hamburgers, 12 of them. I'm like, well, why do you need fucking 12 hamburgers, no buns, in a fucking bag? Okay, I get it now. You're gonna feed
and it's also a very specific number. Give me a dozen hamburgers.
Yeah, it's kind of like shitting on this guy.
I also, yeah, and I also feel like those must not be very well trained guard dogs. I feel like a real well trained guard dog wouldn't just roll over if you gave him a hamburger. I don't know why that's such a small point. It's insignificant, but even him getting the hamburgers, we could have just had like one shot inserted where, and maybe in the director's cut, which I did not watch. I watched the theatrical only, and you watch both. You could have had a quick shot of him going to some walk up at some late night hamburger joint and grabbing them, and that's all you needed, But they still make a scene out of it, and they still make character development, because even the waitress is like trying to get them to like wrap them individually, and that becomes like the conflict of the scene. She's like, it'll ruin them. It'll be all greasy in the bag if you don't individually wrap them. And then the bartender has to explain like it's reflected of her grieving her husband, which again, it just brings this realism. Like,
yeah, really weird.
If I in my playwriting classes, if I had written that scene, I would have been told to cut it. But and that's why I butted heads with my playwriting.
It's weird because like within 2 minutes you get this like half of this guy's life story, because he talks about how even his wife passed 3 years ago, and it's like, oh shit, you're just overhearing random shit.
But that's how it is in a lot of nightlife, and because this is, I get the feeling this is just some bar that happens to make hamburgers late at night for drunks, and sometimes those are the best.
Sometimes they hit, yeah.
But it's people are there. It's, I don't know, it's like the song Piano Man. They all got their stories, and people share their life stories with you. I've had that where a drunk will just keep yammering on because I'm the only one who will listen to him, even half-heartedly.
Yeah.
And so it just helps build the world that Cosmo's living in.
It really does. And that's the kind of shit I'm there for, from those kinds of 70s kinds of movies like this. And it's really just, it really adds to it.
No, and I'm all for that. And we're not plot cells here where every scene needs
We're not plot cells. That's why I recommend the original cut, which is rare because a lot of director's cuts are banging. But this is superior, I think. And then I also do not watch that lame-o Donnie Darko director's cut. That sucks.
Don't do that. And don't watch the theatrical cut of Blade Runner. Also, don't do that.
Oh, yeah.
As long as we're just throwing things around. Have you seen Kingdom of Heaven? I heard the director's cut is vast.
I've not seen that at all.
I need to see Kingdom of Heaven, because I don't know. We'll see how Gladiator 2 ends up. It sounds like it's a shit show. It went way over budget.
Hey, a lot of people are saying it's good. So
a lot of people, I heard
it's gonna be a fun time no matter what. It's gonna be better than Napoleon.
Yeah, for sure. Napoleon was not bad. It was just
whatever.
Yeah, it was whatever. It was like, okay, that was a matinee. That was a movie I saw. That's kind of how I felt.
Yeah, it was a movie.
Yeah, that was a movie. But I mean, people were saying Denzel's good. I'm like, yeah, he's Denzel. Like, what do you mean? Like, yeah.
Historians are pissed off at the movie, but
apparently there's one scene where a guy is like sipping a coffee while reading a newspaper, and it's like they didn't have cafes and they definitely didn't have newspapers in ancient.
The printing press wasn't around for another 1,000 years. Like, what is this? Oh well, fuck it. I'll still be there.
I'm cool with that. They should go full Jesus Christ Superstar and have the Romans in tanks and stuff. That's what they should do.
Hell yeah.
If they make a Gladiator, if I get to direct Gladiator 3, I'm gonna go full anachronistic.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
They're gonna be calling AC-130s in at the Coliseum like it's a Call of Duty game. Anyway,
that'll be yeah.
So anyway.
Anyway,
so he
actually
gives the burgers to the
place.
dogs
in
this estate, which, by the way, speaking of estate, this reminds me, Ben Gazzara, however you say his name, I was like, where have I seen this guy before? He is Jackie Treehorn in The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
I didn't realize until I was looking at his IMDb after the movie. It was bugging me the whole movie. And,
yeah.
It's so great. So he's so good at playing.
Vibe.
It's so great at playing that kind of character.
Also, it reminded me of
Jackie Treehorn even is like trying to be an artist. He's like, the brain is the largest erogenous zone. Well, he's way more
so good. Jackie Treehorn's house is like a top 10 house for me in movies. Just the architecture, it's the shit.
It's so good. But anyway, so he gets in there. Go ahead.
Cosmo has that final moment of what am I doing when he sees that Chinese family walk to their place as he's going towards it and stuff. And pretty much him getting in there successfully is all luck. And you see this, like, he happens to just casually walk by when one of the people has their back turned for like half a second, stuff like that. So it's like very much like fool bumbling his way into this thing.
Yeah, he has a low luck stat, but he just like rolled a nat 20. I'm continuing this metaphor.
Yeah. But that's fine. That's why you're on here.
Right. Fucking D&D metaphors for John Cassavetes. No, but even then, like, Cassavetes takes the time to humanize this guy. And even they cast him, he's this frail old man. He's clearly not just some bookie. As soon as you see the house and all these guards are like, this is not a bookie. A bookie is like something people do under the table or on the side to make money. And they have to have like a real income for.
I don't know. This guy could have been doing large scale shit.
You could be doing large scale
for years.
You're right.
Who knows?
I don't know anything about him.
But it's such an easy way to humanize him. Have him chilling in like the jacuzzi with his wife, playing around and stuff, even at his older age, being playful like that. It's like, okay,
yeah, and kissing his wife in a non-sexual way.
Yeah,
he really loves her. Which is another thing. This movie pays so much attention to those small moments of performance because Cassavetes, he gets it.
Yeah. And then when Cosmo follows him out to the pool, I love the slow swivel it does as it pans around to have him noticing him stand there. And it's just a good use of that kind of a pan. And it's like a slow realization, but you already know why this guy's there. So you don't have to ask any questions.
When you're in crime, I mean, it's always, when's it going to happen? When am I going to get busted? Or in this case, assassinated if you're this high up. I mean, I've even talked to people who used to sell weed on the side or something. And they said like, that's in their head constantly. They're just like, as I keep doing it, the chance approaches 1. And so, which almost makes you like the guy more because there's a stoicism to him. He's just like, okay, he doesn't beg or plead.
Yeah.
And his eyes do all of it, and like, he just looks so frail. God, it's all good. It's so good.
And you're like, yeah, I believe Cosmo's going to kill him. But what I did not believe was that he would just shoot other people that showed up. And I was like, damn, dude.
He panicked. And those guys were going to shoot.
I know, but like, fuck.
And who knows what this guy's past is like. I mean, I definitely get the feeling this is his first killing, but who knows what kind of violence he's seen. I'm sure he's got his ass beat before over gambling debts.
Even while panicking, he still tries to be kind of smart about it because he escapes immediately, gets on a bus and then gets on a taxi and then goes to the movie and then gets a second cab from there. So he tries, but you know what's coming because then right after that, he doubles over in pain. You're like, yeah, I knew it. But then we get the most purposeful aspect of the film is the bullet stuck in his side, just enough to where if you don't get medical attention, shit's going to be bad. But it's still not immediately fatal, so he thinks like he can just let it fester there, just like he is with his club and the rest of his life.
Is it like when your dad got COVID and he was like, I'll just do push-ups and eat vegetables? Is it like that?
Yeah, except I forced his ass to go to the hospital. So, which is what his girlfriend's mom should have done. Should have been like, no, we're going to the hospital right now. Maybe he would have been all
But
right.
also, well, the difference is this is a bullet wound, and that's why she was immediately like, and he's trying to play it off, but the mom, especially because she's less naive than whatever his 26-year-old girlfriend is just like, I ain't dealing with this shit. I don't know what you're embroiled in.
Yeah.
But I'm an old black lady and I don't want to deal with this white shit. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
like that
Honestly,
sounds like
yeah.
it sounds like I'm joking, but I'm really not. It's just like I'm not doing this, which I wouldn't either, and that's really, we see the veil drop, because that's when he says, you know, the only time he feels happy or he feels like himself is like when he's angry or doing something that somebody else expects. He drops that, like, his mom left when he was real young and his dad was, a drunk, and all these things. A life that's been lived a lot of times before, but he just has no idea who he is because of that.
But it's still, even though those aspects of his family, it still means a lot to him. And he even gets very loud and angry when she tries to downplay that. So that's interesting.
Because he's trying to open up, and he realizes, like, this person I thought I was close to, I'm not.
Yeah.
Or they don't care about me the way I do about them. Because he really wanted to care about them and really wanted to care about Ma. But at the same time, it's that selfish kind of love where you're doing it only for yourself and how it makes you feel.
Yeah.
I don't know if this man has ever felt real love.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's ever felt it being given to him or if he's ever given it to anybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, your current girlfriend, your mid-40s, is a stripper at your club that works for you. That's not going to be a good relationship. He should know that.
It's not. Yeah, of course I know that. But it's like, I hate bringing this up because it's such a dead meme by this point. But it's like Leo and his young girlfriends. Like, they all know what's happening. Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, not in the movie. I'm saying in real life.
Stupid brain was thinking of Twin Peaks because that's me and Parker have been watching that. So I was like,
oh yeah, it's that time.
Leo
of year.
Johnson? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, Leo Johnson.
But at this point we get the mobsters' perspective on their own, which I thought was interesting because they're shocked that it like went over the way it did, and they described it as like a massacre. And then it adds to the grimy 70s atmosphere because this old ass restaurant they're in is like, it looks like it was built in like the 30s or something. And then, like, why are mobsters always eating this heavy ass Italian food at like 10, 11 at night? It's crazy. Did they have Tums back then? I don't know. Like,
I don't know, man. And
they're always eating so late.
It's an Italian American thing. That's a Mediterranean thing too. Eating that late.
Know.
They'll eat at like 9 p.m. It's crazy to me. It's so annoying. I'm like, I'm about to go to bed. I don't want a heavy ass meal right now. We like food.
It's like, despite all this, Cosmo's somehow able to show back up the club despite with this bullet in his side. And
even then, he should know better.
Yeah.
I mean, when he does it initially, when he goes back later, when he knows people are looking for him, like, that's just pure desperation and blind ignorance,
Yeah, because there's already a one of the members there waiting for him.
Yeah, so he knows they're not there to congratulate him.
But we get one final, like, before he goes with this guy, we get one more point of like, come on, just take it off. Take off your clothes. One of those moments of like, even when he is like talking to the club and stuff. And anyway, when he goes, the weirdest part of this movie is that when he goes with this guy from the mob, they don't just take him somewhere logical and like kill him or something. Instead, they in this like parking garage. And why not just surround him where he can't like kill anybody?
Because everybody's making this up as they go.
Yeah.
And even the criminals, going back to, we mentioned he goes to that gambling den, because it's not a casino, it's a gambling den, and probably an illegal one. And at the beginning, Mort is trying to be like, oh, you got a nice place, I love this place, and he's really just doing it to advertise his own business and schmooze and make business contacts. But you could argue like Mort's place is about as dingy as Cosmos is. So these are small time gangsters. These are not they're not in with the mob. They just are gangsters.
Yeah.
And so they went way over their head. Like, well, we'll kill this guy, and maybe if he gets lucky, we'll take out our biggest competition.
Yeah.
And they're just shocked when it goes right. So they don't know what they're doing. They might have never killed anybody before.
It's just funny because after he was able to kill that guy in the car, they send the world's worst gunman of all time I've ever seen running after him. Like the guy's literally yelling, "I'm gonna kill you!" Like, why would you yell that?
Because he's never done it before. He's getting
like
his ideas from
every dark corner and stuff. It's like embarrassing.
Also,
what are you doing?
There's one point where he just yells, "Dago!" and that made me laugh. That was
I was like, this guy's the worst gunman of all time.
It's like if somebody was looking for me and they're just like, "Cracker!" I'm like, "Yeah, that's me. What's up?"
But that whole sequence is like, this guy.
Do you think it's gonna piss him off and he's gonna come out of the shadows? He's like, "Hey, don't call me that. I'll take you trying to shoot me, but racial slurs is where I draw the line."
Yeah, he should have said like, "Oh, twin sister. So you have a twin sister." But that sequence was a bit much. It's like, yeah, right.
No, but when he was trying to like make noise to convince them that he was in different rooms and stuff.
Maybe they're just that incompetent.
I think they're just that incompetent. To me, it seems very random, and he doesn't know if this guy's loaded or not. He's afraid for his own life as he's being dispatched to kill this guy. You know, it
but also like
believable.
He's delusional to not think that they were not going to try and double cross him at that point. Like, just forget it. I would have tried to like, I don't know, figure things out back at the club with that guy before going off with him. But you know, whatever. He's also living with a bullet with him, which he thinks if he just ignores, it'll go away just like everything else. So, which is obviously the point of the fucking movie, and that's what gets him in the end, I assume. But it's just, even at the end of the movie, he's trying to come out and really be the focus, like, hey, I'm the club owner. I appreciate everyone that works for me. I'm going to put the spotlight on them. This is a really, poignant, good moment for me. But even then, at the very end, people are saying, "Where are the girls? Pull out your tits."
They don't know it. He's giving his own eulogy, and even he knows it deep down, and he just wants to connect to people because that's all he has, and he just can't do it because people don't want they're not buying what he's selling.
Yeah.
Such a sad character.
It really is. And
Ben Gazzara, he does such a good job because I think so many actors would make that character unlikable. I think Ben, I read, like, didn't like the character, and why would you? I understand. But as an actor, he just plays it with enough charm where, like, you're still rooting for this guy, and I still want him to be okay, even though he's kind of a husk.
Yeah, it really is one of those.
It's one of those things, like, you ever meet people like who life has dealt them a bad hand, but you can see there's something there, and you just wonder, like, what would happen if you were born in a loving household, instead of where you were born, that sort of thing. Or how many, I've read this quote before, like, how many Einstein level geniuses are there who are just, because of the circumstances of their birth, just in some sweatshop somewhere, They could have been the next Mozart or something, but they're just like, were born in. It was like, okay, you go and you make Nike now, and that's it. That's their life.
It's true.
And how many Hitlers have we saved ourselves from with sweatshops? You also have to think about that. So they're not all bad.
Yeah, what? Damn, sinuses are getting to me. When he pops off the stage and you see that visible blood kind of burst out of his side, you're like, oh shit. Because you're kind of waiting for that moment of like, yeah, I can't ignore this anymore. But even then, he's walking outside with blood all over his jacket, still only starting to kind of accept what's going on before we get the final scene or, final shot.
The final stage is acceptance. And that's his character arc. He finally accepts reality. After trying to create his own reality and create Paris and create the illusion of himself, he finally accepts the, like, hard, material reality of where he is.
But it's so casual. It's not like this big dramatic moment.
Exactly what it needs to be.
Yeah. The only discrepancy I have is that as someone who has a blood disorder and gets nosebleeds a lot, blood on a blazer or a suit is not that bright. It's pretty dark.
It looks pretty fake.
Yeah. But that's my discrepancy.
Yeah. Well, if I ever make a movie with a lot of blood, I'll call your expertise as a professional bleeder. You'll be my subject.
Yeah, well, in my first movie, Moon Man, the blood was not looking right. So I just grabbed my 2 fingers and pushed them in my nose and made it bleed all over my tracksuit. And Cody and Sumner were like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I'm
That's
like,
so fun. That could be on your acting reel. It's like some actors can cry on command. I can do this. Yeah, I can really master Roshi myself at any time.
I regret doing it now because it's like, what the fuck was that? That was unhinged shit. But
that's filmmaking, baby.
Whatever.
That's indie zero budget filmmaking.
Anyway.
We use real blood because we can't afford corn syrup.
No, you get that shit at the Halloween store. It just doesn't, it looks so cheap. But anyway, final thoughts on Killing of a Chinese Bookie.
Another one of those movies. I mean, like you, I think the first half of this, I was getting into it. I didn't hate it, but I could be even a bit bored at times, honestly. Which I think on a rewatch, I would appreciate like what the scenes are doing, knowing the whole story. And I enjoy more of it. And I definitely didn't need to watch A Woman Under the Influence and some of his other stuff. You know, it's a gaping hole in my film knowledge, but good stuff.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting style that I was not prepared for when I put this movie on. And I was glad to see that it had a purpose and it just wasn't just there because it was there. And I know like the edit was kind of rushed to get out in time, but like it adds to it. What can I say?
Editing, the more movies I watch, the more I'm just like, editing might be, this is very all or nothing, but editing might be the most important part of the filmmaking process.
Yeah. Well, that's where, easily.
Because that's where you make the movie. Where
you make the movie. I could see the movie being cut down an additional like 4 or 5 minutes.
Sure, me too.
But not the 25, 30 from the director's cut.
Right. There's a few scenes that drag regardless, where I'm like, okay, I get what you're saying here. Like this could have
like you can still live in the scene.
I guess this is, even though he was a studied actor and apparently he did some, pretty unique acting workshop. But I think this is the advantage of having filmmakers who don't go to film school, because then you get weird stuff like this that's kind of in a way unstudied, but they learned everything on the job and are able to bring that.
Yeah.
In that sort of low budget, almost DIY sense.
And that's right. Anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. Next week, I actually forgot what we're doing next week, but tune in next week. We have plenty more episodes like this, over 150 of them. We have video essays now if you want to check those out. If you want to support us, I have a book for sale. We have a tie-in film. You can find both of those in the description, etc., etc. Follow Scott on Instagram at Scott K Comedy, me at The Mooring Line. We have a secondary channel with shorts and my documentary Christmas in Vegas, like I said, stuff like that. So there are multiple avenues if you want more videos from us. Plenty of it. So check that out. I hope your week's going good. I hope the election is going good right after this. Who knows? Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.